Hello again. We just got done with the reading of the blog, and now we are about to look at the most interesting part of the presentation. This is where we dive deeper into the concept and have a real discussion on the framework. And I developed a 13 slides um, PowerPoint presentation that will help guide this conversation. Again, if you're just joining, this is welcome to Project Management Study Class presented by Executant Consultancy. And my name is Ishmael Sharif, and I'm the host. And today is our second study class session. So, welcome to this discussion. Feel free to leave a comment, questions, or anything you want to share regarding this topic. I would love to hear your feedback on how we can continuously uh, be better at delivering value in this um, study class. So, again, we are exploring the M.O.R.E framework, planning for success and delivering stakeholder perceived value. We are going to look at this through a real world lens of Senior Life mobile application project. So, again, like I said, throughout as we discuss this M.O.R.E concept, we are always going to see this question. This going to serve as a reminder on how we project managers need to reset our mindset when it comes to defining success. So the question reads, what if the project you deliver on time, within budget, and fully within scope was still considered a failure? The constraint was managed, but the value was not. Okay. This has been a problem for decades now. Um, Not a problem, but this has been a thing over the past decades where, we had always defined project success based on scope, schedule, and budget. However, in today's world, scope, schedule, and budget is not just enough to define project success, right? We need to look at stakeholder perceived value. What matters to the stakeholders? Does the investment worth the time, the money, and the effort? Did it deliver the value that we recognize as truly a success criteria? Those are the things that we as project managers needs to start thinking about. Okay. So in this conversation, we're going to dissect the Seniors Life mobile application project, and we're going to look at how the more framework plays into it in terms of delivering value. We're going to also look at how the triple constraints, scope, schedule, and budget also contribute to the success. And we're also going to look at how the PMI Talent Triangle contribute to delivering a stakeholder perceived value. Okay. So let's look at how let's do a overview of how PMI define project success, the evolution, right, of project success, how it's defined. Well, first you had the triple constraints that include scope, schedule, and budget, right? It serves as the three guardrails of project success. Delivering within the defined boundaries was the measure of the job well done. Widely adopted across industries for decades, a universal language for project team and executives alike. Again, this method, the triple constraint method, was widely adopted throughout the whole world. Every industry, every enterprise, every company, every business or organizations was working based on the triple constraint. Yes, your scope. yes, your schedule, yes, your budget, right? If you can deliver this project according to how the scope was written, if you can deliver this project within the set time frame that I wanted to be delivered, if you can deliver this project within the established budget, the project is considered a success. And for many decades, that's how project managers was being criticized as well as celebrated, right? Now we move on to the PMI Talent Triangle, which was introduced in 2015. So the PMI Talent Triangle, right? PMI expanded the professional value delivery beyond delivering mechanics. The PM became a strategic contributor, not just a schedule keeper. Now, with the talent triangle, you have the business acumen, you have the ways of working, and you have the power skills, which we're going to talk more about in this presentation. Now, in 2025, PMI introduced the MORE, M-O-R-E, which is considered um, a value delivery model that places stakeholder perceived value at the very center of success. So now we move from the triple constraint, which was based on scope, schedule, and budget, to the PMI talent triangle, which talks about the business acumen, the ways of working, the power skills. And now we are in the value delivery era where success is based on stakeholder perceived value, right? Schedule, budget, and scope still remains a guardrails, right? We are not dismissing, those old methods of working. You still have to meet a schedule deadline. You still have to work within a budget and avoid budget overruns. You still have to meet the scopes. But again, they exist in service to something bigger. And that something bigger is the stakeholder perceived value, right? Outcomes that stakeholder experience as genuine and meaningfully valuable. I've worked for a company where a new process, a new software were introduced, and everyone's was like, "What the heck?" You know, um, it wasn't genuinely accepted by the team, right? It was forced on the team because it was just kind of forced onto them and say, hey, yes, your new product, yes, your new process, this is what you're going to be using from now on. But genuinely, it was not accepted by the stakeholders. And would you say stakeholders had a good experience? No, because again, the perceived value was not the center of how success was defined. Value delivery becomes the new standard and professional accountability of professional accountability. Okay. It says here, more does not discard what came before, it contextualizes it. So now let's look at an overview of the See on Life mobile project. So this project was supposed to build a mobile app for an aging population, a population that doesn't really know much about technology. They know technology exists, but they haven't done well with keeping up with the changes, right? But in as much as they do not have much technology knowledge, guess what? They still live in our society, right? They still need to adapt to what goes on in the society, right? Healthcare systems, right? On social media, right? They may have grandkids or great grandkids that are heavily indulged into the digital world. How do they align with their family members? How do they keep up with the pace of technology? So the reason for this app is to build something that will help the senior citizens be able to adapt more to how society is living. And some of the features that's going to be available on this app is health data tracking. Now they don't have to, with this app, they can track their own health data. They can set their own appointments and get their own reminders, right? There is a family and social connectivity component to the app where they can connect with the family lifestyle and share photos and videos of memories of events that take place, right? There's an event and activity storage. There's a recipe, nutritional, and grocery list. That senior citizen who is a user of this app is able to manage their recipes, their diet needs, birthday and key dates reminders, which is very important for senior citizens, voice enable feature, which we're going to talk more about, and a customizable interface to be able to meet the user preference. Okay. Down here it says design mandate. Every feature must be discoverable, intuitive, and confidence building for users who may have little poor experience with smartphones technology. So during the planning of this project, six key stakeholders were identified, right? We have the senior citizens, who's the end user, right? And basically, their expectation was um, any feature on the app should be found within 45 seconds, meaning if they open their phone and try to look for a specific feature, it should be 45 seconds or less for them to be able to find that feature on the app, any feature. Minimum tech knowledge require technology that empowers and not intimidates. They don't want a technology that is going to intimidate them, right? They want a technology that is going to empower them. And what is the value in that? If is independence and confidence. The product owner. The product owner expectation is the product owner wants a voice-enabled feature that reads aloud feature names and notification upon tap. A self-teaching experience that builds navigation confidence. So what the product owner wants is that the product owner wants for every tap or every click on the app, there should be a read out loud of what that click was. If it's a notification, if the senior citizen click on notification, it should say notification. If it clicks on a specific type of notification, it should be able to read out aloud the notification and every components involved with that notification. And this feature is to be applied to every component of the app, right? And what is the value in there is guided accessibility, right? These are senior citizens. They don't know much about technology. So that voice enabled feature helps them to know that they are clicking on the right thing and also help to guide them through guide them through using the app as well. Project sponsor. The expectation is successful delivery to demonstrate the team credibility for the next client engagement, organization repetition as a credibility multiplier. So the project sponsor is concerned about this project being delivered and actually being successful so it can increase the organization credibility so that they can be able to acquire more clients and the clients that they have in the pipeline can have confidence in doing business with them. And the value in that is strategic positioning. So you see how the expectations kind of is, is spelled out different and the value itself is stand alone from the expectations. So basically, the expectations kind of predicts what the value is going to be, right? So business development team, the business development team, the expectation is reinforces competitive standing, support the business case for next project, proof of delivery excellence that wins the trust of client. And the value in there is market differentiation. These are sales guys, right? They are more concerned about this project being successful so it can increase the reputation of their team so they can be able to get more project. They can use this project as an evidence to say, hey, we can do this. We have the capability of delivering critical projects, right? Yes, an example. And this is the expectation of the business team. And the value in that is market differentiation because they get to differentiate themselves from their competitors. The release and security team, their expectations is basically login credentials and protecting the data of senior citizens. Maybe somewhere in the past they have worked on a project similar to this where there have been a lot of calls for, oh, I'm locked out of my account. I lost my password. I cannot access my account. I cannot access my data and stuff like that. And when dealing with senior citizens, you need to be fully aware that passwords and logins, those are things that are of challenge to them. So the release team is more concerned about an easy way that a senior citizen can log into their app and be able to access the data without compromising the data, meaning protecting the data. So their expectation is they want a 4-digit PIN or facial recognition, email or phone authentication seniors can manage without locked out, data protection without accessibility barriers. Again, the value in there is secure usability. Finish a little bit. And then the last stakeholder is the caregiver, family, or guardian. Those folks who are either helping the senior citizens with their daily lives, answering questions, taking them out to appointments and stuff like that. They too are stakeholders because whenever the senior citizens do not know what they are doing, guess who they ask? They ask the caregiver, they ask the family, or they ask the guardians. And the guardians, they don't want to be caught up in a situation where they themselves need to learn a new tool in order to teach the senior citizen how to use that tool. So their expectation is they want like an in-app how to use resource for senior citizens to kind of navigate and learn on their own. It's going to create independence and more navigation safety. And what's the value in that? They get peace of mind. At least they are able to focus on other priorities of the senior citizen than focusing on trying to teach them how to use our app. So as you can see, there are stakeholders. Each stakeholders have different expectations, and each stakeholders have different perceived value. And as project managers or project team, this is what Mo is talking about. We have to manage these values. We have to deliver these values while managing these expectations. So even if the scope change, right? Even if there's a risk factor that was identified, even if budget change, schedule change, guess what? We still have to meet the perceived value of the stakeholder because in the stakeholder's mind, that's success. Success is not just, hey, I'm going to develop 10 features in 5 hours, right? That's cool. But does those 10 features align with the user value? Does those 10 features align with the perceived value of the product owner and that of the sponsor, the release team, and the family and caregiver? Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, if we are managing projects with the stakeholder perceived value in mind, we are able to align everything that we are doing in that project. We are able to align it to how our stakeholders define success. And as you can see, the success criteria in this project is is more than one. It's about 6 of them, right? And each stakeholder has their own perceived value. So let's see how we can plan for success using the M.O.R.E framework and how we are able to meet those stakeholders' perceived value. So 3 developments. So right before official kickoff, 3 significant developments emerges on the Science Life project. Here's how M.O.R.E guided their response to each. The first development was the scope constraints. What happened? Well, the voice enabled feature could not be applied to every function on the app. due to schedule and budget constraint. Meaning, if the development team is to apply the voice enable feature on every single function on the app, meaning the project is going to be delayed and there's going to be a need for more money. And since the project have a fixed 9 months timeline and a fixed budget and very limited contingency, the team is basically looking at selecting a few essential features that can be used, that can be used on the app, but that also deviate from the product owner original version expectation, right? The product owner wants the voice enable feature to be on every function. And now the team is saying we cannot apply to every function because we have schedule and budget constraints. So in this situation, if you are working in a more framework where you have the value of the stakeholder on your mind, right? Remember the value of the product owner, the perceived value is that every function should be voice enabled at a tap or a click. So what is more action? What do you do as a project manager? Do you just sit there and agree? Do you fight it? Do you go request for more money and ask for additional time? What do you do? Now, more action, what you do is that you re-engage the product owner with transparent communication. Present what is deliverable and demonstrate how partial voice enables still advance core perceived value. Formalize the scope adjustment through change control. So you you basically managing perception to realize expectation. So what you do is that you re-engage the product owner and let them know, say, hey, Mr. Product Owner, it's unfortunate that we cannot meet this expectation due to our budget and schedule constraint. However, we plan on applying this feature to a selected functions. However, it still meets the perceived value. These functions that we are going to apply it to are probably critical functions, are probably functions that the team had already identified senior users to use the most, right? These are not terms of use, things that the user doesn't really focus on. It could be a simple, it could be just the essential stuff like notification reminders, birthday reminders, right? It could be doctor's appointment, it could be reading out loud any type of message or inbox, but just a selected few functions that this feature can be applied to. Be very transparent and lay out the technical lines to the product owner. Let them know what exactly, which features and functions, which functions exactly the features can be applied to. So probably the product owner might say, you know what, as a matter of fact, out of this 10 features that you have selected to apply this function to, out of these 10 functions you have selected to apply these features to, I want you to only apply to 7, or I want you to take 3 out. This 3 out is not important. I want you to add this 3 more to it, right? Lay out, be very transparent, be very transparent and show what is to be delivered. And also let them know that, hey, you're still going to get this, receive the perceived value, even though we are not able to apply to every function on the app. That's what more require us project managers to do, right? Communicate and be transparent. Development 2, schedule and budget impact. The team made a decision to conduct a user acceptance testing. UAT with 250 senior users. Now, this decision was great, right? Because number one, you do not want to put a product on the market that is faulty, right? You don't want to create a product that senior citizens will look at and be like, oh, another one again, another technology again, another, you know, technology intimidation again, right? You want to create a product that is adaptable. You want to create a product that they will love to use, right? And besides, if you put a product on the market that doesn't have no value to its users, guess what? You just wasted your company money, right? That money that was invested into the project didn't worth didn't worth the time and the effort, right? So it's always important to do some type of user acceptance testings on this technology work because you want to make sure that you are meeting the needs of your users. In this case, the team chose 250 senior users. Because of this decision, it added 4 weeks to the schedule and increase the budget by 20%, which means that the entire contingency has been consumed. Remember, the budget was fixed and very minimal contingency. So 4 weeks to the schedule and 20% budget increase, which consumed the entire contingency. So now there is no more contingency. Now the team have to be proactive in managing their money. Like going back to the sponsor and saying, "Hey, we need more money for this project." You know, you know, that's gonna be, probably the sponsor gonna give it, depending on how you communicate that. But again, it was a fixed budget, right? So the need to go back and ask for more money, it's not even, you know, it's not even permitted in this sense, right? So what is more action? Present the business case, you know, to the sponsor, right? Or whoever's paying for the project. Present the business case to them and say, listen, if we skip testing, right, we risk product failure, poor adoption, and our reputation could be damaged, all of which destroy value far beyond the additional cost. So secure the sponsor approval and document it, right? In some cases, in order for you to use certain contingency reserve of the project, you need management approval, right? So this could be in a situation where, hey, yes, you know, we estimate that 20% budget increase based on the 4 weeks addition schedule and the 250 senior users, testing that consumes the, contingency. However, we still need approval from the sponsor to say, yes, go ahead and use the contingency. So the project will be estimated in numbers, right? But the money can be applied at another time, at another date. However, you don't have to wait for the money to be physically applied to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to start implementing, right? You can already start to implement the project while that process of approval is going on with the project sponsor. Most likely, if whatever you are proposing to the project sponsor, if it makes sense, the process of approving that contingent reserve could be a day, two, it could be a week, depending on how much they have to review and how much they have to consider before making that decision. But at the end of the day, we know that it's necessary to carry out a user test. If not, you could risk putting a poor failure on the market, and that could ruin the reputation of the organization. And due to this decision, schedule increase and budget increase, right? And the best thing a project manager can do is to communicate this clearly to the project sponsor and letting them know that, hey, this is necessary to keep our reputation, and this is also necessary to avoid any type of rework or putting a bad product on the market. And under the more framework, that falls under owning success, right? Owning success, meaningful outcome. You own the success. Development three, strategic bandwidth risks. The project sponsor informed the team that the next client project had been moved forward by 3 months, placing additional pressure on the current team's bandwidth, focus, and transition timeline. So now the team already had a fixed 9 months, right, to work to deliver this project. Additional 4 weeks was added on the project, making it an overall duration of 10 months. I'm sure the team is still working through some schedule constraints, right? Because nothing is ever perfect. And now here comes your sponsor saying, hey, guess what? Remember that client that that was waiting to see the delivery of this project, to kind of build some confidence, to know whether they should let us work on their project or not. Guess what? Well, they believe in us. They don't need to see the end of this project. They want us to start 3 months early. Okay, 3 months early. And you're like, what the heck? I'm already managing a I'm already implementing a very technical project that have six different perceived value that I need to manage and deliver. And now you're telling me that a new project is going to start 3 months early. That means that project is going to start while this project is still in execution, right? So now, what do you do as a project manager, right? As a project manager who is, highly aware of the value delivery framework, right? So the more action is you begin transition planning immediately. Identify which team members will be needed for the next engagement and create a clear resource handoff plan. Finalize lesson learned, documentation, documentation early to protect strategic continuity. And under mode, this is expand perspective, organization value. So now you are also looking at the organization value. The organization wants the project. Obviously, both projects is important to the organization. So you expand your perspective. Your perspective now is not just about the six stakeholders that you have to meet their expectation. Your perspective is also now you have to make sure that your organization that you work for acquire the business value through this engagement or relationships with their, stakeholders, right? So again, we project managers, we work through constraints. Nothing is presented perfect, right? You have to be able to use what you have, right? To be able to make the right decisions that is affordable and also is able to direct you to the stakeholder perceived value and not interfere with delivering the stakeholder perceived value. So what you do is that you begin immediate planning, resource handoff. You identify, okay, who on my team that I need now and who on my team that I do not need now, but they can go on that project and start to set things up since I don't need them right now. And that is called resource planning. That's planning your resource, right? So and you will learn more about resource planning in the knowledge area that talks about resource management, right? So now you identify, okay, who's my team member that I don't need right now? I may need him maybe in the fourth month or in the fifth or sixth month. Maybe that team member can go to this new project and start to set things up, right? Then the ones that I need right now, I get to keep on my project, right? However, still keep the communication line, still keep the other team members involved, even though They will be temporarily working on another project, but still keep them in the line because eventually they will come back to your project. And the folks that are working with you now that you need now may transition to the new project to get that project kicked off as this senior life project is is nearing to the end. So by the time the senior life project is complete, the team now can make a full transition to the new project. And by then, that project is already going to be in motion and they are aware of what's going on that project because they was the one who started setting up the initial scopes and schedule and budget and everything else that it need to the baseline that need to be laid down in order to get to confirm that the project is ready to go, right? So you know, things happen in project. Yeah, you might have a perfect scope, but things change. And as project managers, you have to be able to adapt, be flexible, and always keep in mind the stakeholder perceived value no matter what the change is, because stakeholders are not defining success as, oh yes, he delivered exact on the ninth month, oh it was exactly on budget, oh he provided all of the features that the app needed. No, they are not defining success like that. They are defining success by each value, each perceived value that they want to receive. Like for instance, the caregiving team, they want the app to come with a how to use resource, right? To train the senior citizen to be more independent so they can focus on other things instead of teaching them how to use the app, right? The product owner, we talk about it, he want a voice activation feature. So at every tap, it will read out loud and the senior citizen is able to adapt more to the application by listening and doing, right? They sponsor. They sponsor, strategic positioning, right? He wants the project to be successful so it can position the organization to acquire better project and better clients, right? Like we see with the project that is going to be starting in uh, 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 in 3 months, right? So you have all these values that you have to deliver. So even if the project schedule change, even if different risk factor come about, right? You still have to own the success. You still have to be able to expand your perspective. You still have to manage expectation. And another thing that is not in here is relentlessly reassess. So we go to the next slide, okay? That talks about value is the compass. Again, value is the navigator, right? Into this world managing project. You I was talking to one of my business colleagues, right? And I was just kind of pitching a business idea. I said, listen, I'm thinking about doing such and such, right? I'm thinking about launching such and such. I think it's going to be great. I think business owners going to love it. I think it's going to help bring quick, sustainable results. And it's going to help their growth, their business development growth. And my colleague said, I get it, but what's the value in there? What's the value to me? What's the value to them? What's the value to the community? What's the value? And then I had to take a step back and say, okay, so I am basing this on the outcome, whatever product that I want to release to the market. I am basing it on the outcome it's going to offer. I am not, however, I haven't identified the perceived value of the stakeholders who will be using this product. And that question hit me. That question made me to reevaluate that idea, right? So value is the navigator, value is the compass, right? Not a single number. In M.O.R.E framework, value is inherently subjective. And that subjective is precisely what makes it so important to understand explicitly, right? So let's look at some values, right? Let's look at some values, right? Personal values, right? Human experimental. The confidence a senior citizen feels the first time they navigated their health data and scheduled a doctor's appointment without assistant. This is the most human measure of success on Seniors Life mobile application. So the confidence that a senior citizen have when they're able to like grab their phone, go to the app, schedule their own, check their own healthcare data and schedule their own appointment without calling a caregiver, without calling mom or without calling kids, you know, not mom, but without calling, grandkids, or children to help them. That's a huge confidence. And that's the human value in there, right? That's how success is measured when it comes to working in more framework, right? Like the value, the end, the outcome delivers to the end user or the stakeholders, right? Now, that value also extend to the caregiving team. Guess what? Now the caregiving team can sit back and say, "Oh wow, he or she was able to set her doctor's appointment, schedule her Uber Lyft, answer all the critical questions without assistance. Wow, right? It takes a huge weight off of the caregiver, and that in itself is value. And that's the value that the caregiver wanted from this app, right? Now we look at organization value, strategic repetition. Successful delivery establishes the team credibility and position the organization um, competitively before the next planned client engagement. The PM is accountable for this outcome too. So again, the sales team, the sponsor, they are all counting on the project manager and his team to successfully deliver this project because what it's going to do is going to increase the repetition of the organization, right? Other clients and other folks out there who want to work with this organization, they can look at this project and say, wow, this organization did absolutely great. And guess what they're looking at? Again, they are not looking at whether it was delivered within scope. They are not looking at whether it was delivered on time. As a matter of fact, on time is not even an issue. They are not looking at whether it was delivered on budget, right? They are looking at perceived value. They will call a stakeholder and say, listen, that new app that was delivered by executive consultancy, how is it working for you? How is the accessibility, right? Are you adapting more? Do you find it to be easy to use? Is it solving your life problems? And if they say yes, that means that the perceived values was met. If they say no, that means that yes, yes, the project was delivered on time and on budget, but hey, the perceived value wasn't met, so that project is considered unsuccessful. That's what they're going to be looking at, right? And for this project, the business team needed the project team to be successful because it's going to increase the repetition on how they do business and brings value to the organization. Then you got the commercial value, the pipeline. Again, the business development team pipeline depend on this delivery. A well executed project becomes proof point that differentiates the organization in the competitive market. Hey, I can see that guy going on his sales meeting, got his portfolio, got this senior life project or pitch out, you know, talk, ready to talk about how the type of success, the type of value the project deliver, to the community, how since the project was deployed, since the product was deployed, and the access rate is very high, maybe show some good feedback and some good ratings from senior citizens, maybe show that more senior citizens are logging onto the app more times a day than they log onto their social media profile. They get a feedback from caregivers that, hey, caregivers can now focus on other things like doing laundry, preparing meals, going out to shopping, and doing other things because now senior citizens are confident and they are independent to do certain things on their own. Those are all values that salesperson can insert into his pitch deck when he goes on his next sales pitch, to win the next client over who wants similar app to be built for them. And this is why the commercial value is very important, right? This is why the commercial value is very important. Okay. Um, and then the societal value, community dignity. Seniors' life serves an aging population frequently left behind by rapid technology change. Delivering it well is a social good. It extends dignity and independence to the vulnerable community, right? So another value is the impact it has on society. There's an aging population that like doesn't didn't have the time to keep up with emerging technology and the growth of technology. So, you know, providing something that help them makes providing a technology that help to make their life easy is a social good. And social good is one of the success indicator of the more framework. So if you apply more framework and you want to indicate whether on what you're doing will be successful, just look at the social impact, the social and sustainable impact on the community, right? That alone will tell you that the project you are delivering is of value. Okay. And in this case, yes, it's of value because it's going to be helping an aging population to make their life easy. Okay. And down here, it reads, project manager who understand this shift becomes steward of value delivery, architect of the outcome that makes the investment of time, money, and human effort worthwhile. So let's look at more call to action in this whole scenario. What is more telling us to do? Right? Remember, more stands for manage expectation, own success, relentlessly reassess, and expand perspective. Okay. So we got the M, right? Stakeholder perception. Ensure key stakeholders perceive project output as sufficiently valuable relative to resource investments, right? The senior life. When voice enable had to be limited to essential feature, the PM immediately re-engaged the product owner transparently, presenting remained what what remained deliverable and framing it around the core perceived value. Perspective was managed proactively, not reactively. You see, the project owner, as as a project manager, when you get a new development that doesn't sit that basically doesn't sound good, right? You're like, oh shoot, what again? Right? Something different, a change, right? You need to be proactive, right? We as project managers need to be proactive and communicate clearly with our stakeholders what that change means and how we can still meet the perceived value even though this change is effective. And even if the perceived value cannot be met, it's also okay to discuss it with the stakeholder. and and try to acquire what other alternative there is that the team can focus on. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to be proactive, not reactive, right? Then you have to own success. And how that looks like, take accountability that goes beyond execution. Own both the tangible and perceived value of delivery and how that aligns to seniors' life. The PM did not stop at feature delivery. Adoption by senior users measured through onboarding, data use, and accessibility ratings became the true success metrics. Ownership meant accountability for outcome, not just output, right? So as all of this is going on and as all of these changes are coming, guess what? We are project managers, we still have to own ownership. We still have to own ownership. In previous slides, right? In previous slides, we talk about how um 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 um, um you know we 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 we, we talk about the 250 senior user that was selected to test the product before it goes on the market, right? That's only success. Even though there are changes that is happening on the project, but guess what? You still have, you are still responsible and still have the accountability of delivering the project. Not just deliver the project, but deliver the perceived value. So owning success is very important. You cannot skip that. Relentlessly reassess, adapting planning, right? The definition, continuously adapt project parameter as needed, technologies and goals involved. Never let it need, never let, never let your stakeholder value to be dismissed, right? So when UAT added 4 weeks and 20% budget exhausting contingency, the PM immediately reassessed all remaining discrepancy activities to identify what could be differ without impacting the perceived value. So again, adding the user acceptance testing to the project increased the schedule by 4 weeks and the budget by 20%. And what a project manager will do, you reassess. You reassess all the remaining documents, discrepancy, the plans, your schedule, everything that you need to do from that point on to the end of the project. You reassess it, and you try to identify what's different, what's changed, and what has impacted my stakeholder perceived value. And if anything has impacted your stakeholder perceived value, what do? You communicate transparently to your stakeholders those changes and discuss it and figure out ways that you can still meet the perceived value, figure out ways that you can still deliver the outcome and meet the perceived value, or if there's any alternative that could be used as well. And the last one is expand perspective, broaden impact lens. The definition, consider how the project integrates with broader business goals and impacts the world beyond the delivery itself. How does that look like in Sion's life? The Sion's next client project being moved up 3 months was not a distraction. It was an organization value signal. The PM began transition and lesson learned documentation immediately, protecting strategic continuity. So now, the new project starting 3 months earlier, it may seem as a distraction, it may seem as a disruption, but really it's not. Is a signal that, hey, we do have organizational value, and this is an opportunity for us to increase our organizational value, right? So what the PM did, the project manager began resource planning, transition planning. Who can I use now? and who I do not need now that I can send to the new project, and who do I need later that I will need now, right? So basically, it adds value to the organization, and it protects the organization's strategic position, which is the organizational value. Now let's look at the triple constraint. How does it apply to the senior life? Remember, the M.O.R.E framework is not here to dismiss the triple constraint, neither the PMI Talent Triangle. It is still important. It still serves as guardrails, but this time around, it is in service to something much bigger, and that is the stakeholder perceived value. So, in other words, we're still going to work through our constraints, right? We're still going to work through constraints, right? Because real investments, time and resources is going into this, and this is business and this project, right? But at the end of the day, the bigger goal, the ultimate goal, right, that we're trying to meet is the value that the stakeholder receive from the outcome of the project, which is the stakeholder perceived value. So what the triple constraint track, right? The triple constraint tracks a fixed 9 months delivery timeline. It does that because again, it's a schedule, it's a mandated schedule that the project team need to follow, right? So it tracks that. It also tracks the budget, how much being spent, how much left, right? Budget to completion, right? What's our variances, right? Cost performance index, right? If we're talking about earned value management, which we're going to discuss later down the line, all these cost artifacts, right? The triple constraints measure them, right? And then the triple constraint also define the feature scope. Like the triple constraint would define the health tracking, what that looks like in reality, the medication reminder, social connectivity, event storage, recipe, nutrition, grocery management, birthday notification, voice enabled features. The triple constraint can track all of these through a milestone, delivery, milestone adherence, and cost verification reporting, right? They can track all of these. Hey, was the health tracker deployed? Is it working? Yes, check mark. Okay. Was the medication reminders feature working? Yes, check mark. Right? Is there a good social connectivity? Yes, check mark. Are there birthday notification of family members and close friends? Yes, check mark. The triple constraint is going to check all of that, right? Those are milestones. Those could be milestones. Those could be different sets of delivery, right? But the triple constraint is not going to track the value that the stakeholder receive. Okay. So as we can see, the project can hit all three and still fail. Let's see how. So what it cannot measure, the gap. The triple constraint cannot measure whether a senior citizen can find any feature within 45 seconds. Right? That's a human value. The triple constraint cannot measure whether their voice-enabled experience actually built navigation confidence. Is it annoying or is it really, really doing what it's supposed to do? The triple constraint cannot measure how the, the peace that caregiver, the peace of mind that caregiver feel about the loved one using the app. When a caregiver sit back and say, wow, that app is incredible. I can't believe he or she sets her own doctor's appointment without me. He or she was able to go grab her medication without me. The triple constraint doesn't track that. Those are values. The triple constraint cannot also measure whether the project truly deliver what's matter to the people who matters. Again, senior citizens are the ones going to be using it. These people, they They have not adapted to technology as fast as others have, right? They are left behind. So, did the project deliver what truly matters to them? Does it really serve their purpose, meet their needs? The triple constraint does not measure that. The triple constraint also does not measure the sponsor organization credibility is enhanced as intended. So basically, the sponsors want good organization credibility. The sponsors, want to increase the repetition and strategic positioning. Delivering on time, within budget, or on scope does not do that, right? The triple constraint does not measure that. Okay. I mean, it probably does in a way. It contribute because again, having a successful project increase the organization repetition. But if the other values, the other stakeholders' values are not being met, you definitely cannot call the project a success. And that's what the sponsor wants. The sponsor wants this project to be successful so it can increase the strategic positioning of the organization. So as you can see, the triple constraint will track certain variables on the project, which align with ways of working within a talent triangle. However, it cannot track some other things like the values that the perceived values that stakeholders receive from the outcome of the project. Let's look at PMI Talent Triangle in action. Three, three competency domains, each one activated by specific seniors life project realities. No single side is enough. All three must work together to deliver stakeholder perceived value, right? You have ways of working. Ways of working is a technical practice that determine whether expectations are met. Agile and hybrid. I mean, for a project like this, I mean, those who work in software development or who work on agile project, sprint based delivery, is the best way to go. Especially for a fixed time window, and the UAT decision with 250 seniors, is more like an agile thinking because as these seniors provide feedback, this feedback is being implemented straight into the project. There is no need for change control, right? Because it's it's agile, right? Agile embrace changes on the fly, pretty much. So this entire developmental process for this project, developmental approach for this project would take agile and hybrid. It's going to take hybrid because it's a fixed timeline, right? And there are some waterfall components, you know to it as well, but for the most part it's going to be hybrid. Okay. And then accessibility first design, right? The team wants 45 seconds navigation. In every 45 seconds, they should be 45 seconds or less, they should be able to find what they are looking for. And with the voice activation, with the voice enable feature, it's even going to probably make it easier that they can find it in less than 15 seconds. Because after they have clicked 3 times using that intuition, they should be able to like get to exactly what they're looking for, right? And then risk management from day one. The project poses risks from day one. The fixed agile project, with a fixed budget and fixed schedule, right? That poses risks from the start. So from day one, risk needs to be managed. Okay, probability and impact. Okay, we're going to talk more about risk management in further static class down the line, where we're going to discuss probability and impact. What's the probability of this happening? And what is the impact when it happens? Right? All of those are trigger for good decision making. Okay. What's the probability that adding 250 senior citizens to test the product, what's the probability that the schedule going to increase? Oh, 100%. What's the impact? The impact is it's going to increase by 4 weeks. That's schedule overrun. In other terms, it's schedule overrun. But once the project document gets updated and the baseline gets updated, it's no more a schedule overrun. It becomes part of the project baseline. 10 months. Right. Data and digital fluency. Health metrics, secure authentication, and vendor indication require PM judgment on trade-off that still work for the senior citizen. Okay. So the release team want data protection and data security, right? So the PM need to work out trade-offs. Throughout this whole project, all I see is trade-offs, right? What can we trade to get this? What can we trade to get this? Because we are working in such a very tight constraint, right? So the PM need to be aware of number one, each and every values. Number two, how each and every value is altered and what alter each and every values. And as he's making decisions on trade-offs, as he's selecting vendors, as he integrating different systems, right? He need to take into consideration, you know, data protection of the senior citizen and also accessibility. So let's look at power skills. Interpersonal capability that drives stakeholder alignment. I love this one. Stakeholder communication. Six stakeholders measure success differently. Every status update must be framed around stakeholders' value, not just status. So if you are creating a status report for your stakeholders, it needs to be framed around their values. Okay. And that's some of the technical things that we as project managers need to learn, technical communications. We need to know how to communicate technically to where we we are sharing the best information so our stakeholders can know that hey, we are managing our expectations and our goal is to deliver their perceived value. Now, because now you have six stakeholders with six different definitions of success. I don't, as a project manager, I wouldn't advise to write six reports. Every time you write a status report, you write six reports. But you have to be able to write that report in a way that is framed around every stakeholder value. Every stakeholder can read that report and say, okay, based on my perceived value, I can see where this project is at. I can see what this project is doing. I can see how this project is meeting my perceived value. Right? Empathy in every prioritization. Empathy in every prioritization. Done means usable by seniors, not merely technically complete. The PM champion accessibility in every trade-off decisions. As the PM, as you consider trade-off in these projects or whatever projects you are working on, done, right? Your definition of done, DOD. It means that your definition of done, finish, my project is done. It means that the user adapt to the product. Senior citizens are able to use the product. Product it can be used by senior citizens. Hopefully, with the testing and everything else, you have established a good quality control and deliver a good product on the market. But the definition of done in this situation is that the app can be used by senior citizens, not technically complete, not what the triple constraints track. Not oh yeah, this feature is done, check. This feature is done, check. No, the app should be usable acceptable by the senior citizen. That's going to be the definition of done. So the PM need to champion accessibility in every trade-off decision. In every trade-off decision, he needs to consider what success looks like to stakeholders. Negotiation and conflict resolution. When voice-enabled scope was reduced, the PM reaffirmed success, formalized the change, and protect the product owner reputation. So even though the voice-enabled scope was reduced, but the PM still was able to still communicate the type of value, how it still provides value to the stakeholders, to the users, and with the voice enable feature being reduced, it doesn't compromise the perceived value because the feature can still be applied to other functions on the app that are even more important. Motivational leader. An elite team under pressure need purpose and protection from distraction, especially as the next especially as the next client project accelerates. A team on a project, a team under pressure, you know, working in a fixed 9 months project with six different stakeholders defining success differently, fixed budget. Obviously, you need a motivational leader. You need a leader who will protect the team, you know. You need a leader who will motivate and encourage the team, right? So that's why the motivational leader on the power skills is very important as you apply to consider as you apply the more framework, because the role of a leader plays a huge part in delivering values. Now we come to pilot theory, business acumen, strategic awareness that connects delivery to business outcome. Benefit realization management, adoption proof credibility, onboarding rates, daily active use, and accessibility ratings are tracked as evidence the investment was worthwhile. So again, benefit benefit realization management is kind of like a process, right? A project management process or tool. It could be a tool as well. It could be a tool developed for it, but it's more like a process that aligns, that helps stakeholders or users realize the benefits, right, of whatever the outcome is. The management component comes into play when you are able to track, when you are able to actually track the values that the outcome deliver, right? For instance, onboarding rates. The, the first month in launching, how many senior citizens was glued to this app, right? Data active use. How many senior citizens log onto this app every day, right? Those are evidence that are tracked. Those are benefits that provide evidence that the investment's worthwhile. And we're going to talk more about benefit realization management in the study class further down the line. Strategic alignment. The project directly affects the organization next client engagement. Remember, they was to deliver this project to build the confidence so the next client can say, yes, I believe in you guys. I know you guys can do it. Completing senior life cleanly, and capturing lesson learned supports confidence transition. If the team is able to complete this project, meaning completion means the app is usable by senior citizen, they can gather lesson learned and prepare themselves for the next project that is coming up. Financial stewardship. The user acceptance test cost increase frame as a value protection investment, not budget failure. Escalate before it becomes a crisis. So some project managers might look at the increase in budget from the user acceptance testing as a risk factor, but really it's not a risk factor. It's protecting investment because what if the project team do not conduct or user acceptance testing and they put a product on the market and the onboarding rate is low, the daily active use is low, no one is accessing the app, it's complicated, it's not meeting the needs of senior citizen, it's another technology that intimidates senior citizen. Guess what? Your organization just lost a chunk of money to a failed project, to a product that no one want to use. So adding the user testing, even though it increased cost on the project, but it's a value protection investment to the organization. And that in itself is value. And then legal and regulatory awareness, health data handling, and authentication choices must be secure without creating usability barriers. Yeah. So we have to be able to protect user data. Users need to be able to freely access the app with no barriers. Okay. And those are the values. So what the business acumen really saying is that we as project managers, we need to be partners. We need to be in partnership with our organization, right? Instead of just working as this person who, oh yeah, my job is to just deliver projects. No, we need to be strategic partners with organizations. We need to think ahead and realize the business objective, right? And align ourselves and everything that we do on our projects with the business objective of the organization. Okay. No single side of the talent triangle is sufficient. On Sion's life, ways of working build the product, power skills align stakeholders, and business acumen anchor every decision to value. Together, they deliver more. So let's look at I think we got a few more slides left and yeah, three more slides. Um, so let's look at the risk intelligence. Like I said, working in more does not dismiss the other processes, right? We still deal with constraints, we still deal with assumptions, we still deal with negative and positive risks, right? At the end of the day, the goal in all of these workings, right? Managing risks, managing resources, managing time, managing budget, managing communication, managing stakeholder expectations, right? Managing vendors, managing procurement, managing integrations. In all of these workings, at the end of the day, the goal is to deliver a perceived value of our stakeholders, and the investment have to worthwhile. They have to worth the time and the efforts. That's what more is about. Risk management, more framework, risk intelligence through the more lens. Constraints, threats, and opportunities are not anomalies. They are permanent feature of the delivery landscape. Yep, we're still going to deal with it on Senior's life. Each is evaluated by its impact on stakeholder perceived value. Constraints, full active boundaries, 9 months timeline, limited scope, demand discipline, prioritization at every sprint, fixed budget, minimum contingency. Any scope addition must be evaluated against its contribution to the stakeholder value. Bam! I think this explains it all. Fixed budget and minimum contingency. Any scope addition must be evaluated against its contribution to the stakeholder value, not evaluated against the scope, not evaluated against whether is going to increase the schedule, not evaluated against the quality, not evaluated against the budget, but evaluated against the stakeholder value. If we add additional stuff to the scope, how is it going to impact the stakeholder value? Those are the questions that we have to ask. Voice enabled feature to essential features require renegotiation and transparent communication with the product owner. Right? Renegotiation. Renegotiation. Renegotiation will force on power skills. It will fall on power skills for the talent triangle. Is it power skills? Yep, fall on power skills. So, the simple fact that the voice enable is limited to essential features. Now, the PM need to negotiate with the product owner. That's the alternative. Say, hey, we cannot meet the full scope. We can do some. Here's what we add. This is your value. What do you suggest? Hey, the product owner might say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna put up a couple more dollars. I want it done as I want. I don't mind going back to my team and increasing the budget. Could do that. Maybe not. But end of the day, you still need to negotiate that piece with them because again, you have to deliver their perceived value. If you don't negotiate with them, they're gonna think, hey, everything is good. Then come time to deploy the product or release the product to the market, and now there's a surprise. Only a handful of functions have the voice enable feature. And now you have to explain to the product owner how did you go through a whole 10 months of development, 250 user testing, and you still not tell me that the voice feature cannot be applied. I'm just now knowing that it's only a handful of features that this voice can be applied to. Obviously, they're going to be pissed at you because they didn't get the perceived value. However, communicating that ahead of time gave you the opportunity to negotiate, replan, re-strategize, use trade-off, and use any sort of alternative if there is. The 4-digit PIN facial ID balance, security requirement, and SION user accessibility. Okay, so for now, before it used to be like a username and password, but SION citizen have problem with remembering a username and password. So now just a 4-digit, if not a facial ID login, if not, one way authentication. Those are all options that the senior citizen can use, but at least at the end of the day, there's a data protection, right? It protects that data and also gives them the opportunity to access the data as well. So look at threats. 3 value risk factor. One of the threats is the 4 weeks schedule increase and the 20% budget increase. Depleting all contingency reserve creates critical delivery risks. Delivery date risks requires sponsor escalation. Yeah. Obviously, it altered the baseline, adding 4 weeks to the schedule and 20% budget increase. It definitely altered the baseline. The baseline of the project needs to be changed. And that needs to be escalated to the project sponsor so he can approve it. Again, contingency works differently. There are some contingent reserves that the project manager have the authority to use. There's a contingent reserves that a project manager cannot touch unless there's an approval by the sponsor. In this case, the sponsor play a great role in this project because the sponsor has been in the project from day one. So stuff like budget increase, schedule increase, especially if it's going to impact the organization repetition, yeah, it needs to be escalated to the sponsor. He needs to be aware. Maybe when he aware, He's going to say, hey, he's going to convince the other client to start the project 3 months later than 3 months earlier because now you guys are facing some risk factor. So either way, it works best for the project team to be transparent in communication with the project sponsor when it comes to budget and scope increase. Sponsor next project accelerated may divert team attention and bandwidth before senior's life has fully stabilized. Yeah, obviously, you know, 2 months into a 10-month project, a project that was supposed to be delivered to create an opportunity for another project, 2 months into that project, the sponsor comes and say, hey, the project that is supposed to start right after this project, guess what? It's starting 3 months early. Obviously, it's going to throw anyone out of bounds. But as a trained and experienced project manager or as a project professional, it's your job. It's your job to reassess and identify, okay, what other things this might impact or what opportunity this brings to me. And the opportunity is, hey, they will avoid putting a faulty product on the market. Okay. The opportunity is it will increase quality and increase the reputation of the organization because now with the user testing, uh, um, 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 uh, um, um, you know, um, um, there's going to be more adoption rate to the product. So, I mean, there's good and bad in everything. We as project managers just need to be able to reevaluate the project, our team, based on the information we have available and make the right decision, but make a decision that doesn't discard or dismisses the stakeholder perceived value. Low digital literacy among seniors increase adoption risks. Technical qualities alone does not generate user success or perceived value. Yeah. So you can create all of the technical values for this app. It can be highly technical. Great. It doesn't guarantee that the user will use it. It doesn't guarantee the scenes will use it. It doesn't guarantee success. Again, that's working within the triple constraints. You have to consider that I'm building this app for folks with low digital literacy, right? And as you create these technical qualities, you have to keep that in mind. Because at the end of the day, you want to build a product that is not going to be intimidating to senior citizens, and it's going to help them increase their confidence in using technology. What are some opportunities? Four more opportunities were identified. Again, user acceptance testing was a risk factor. User acceptance testing is also an opportunity, right? Because it's a risk factor because it increased the schedule and budget. It's an opportunity because it generates high quality feedback, quality investment, reduce rework, and measurable improves adoption. It reduces rework. That's the opportunity. Partial voice enables still differentiates the product. Even though the voice enable feature cannot be applied to every function, but the ones it apply to, you know, it still differentiates the product. It still differentiates the product from other products on the market, making again increasing the organization reputation in delivering such product and also setting the team apart and the organization apart from other products from other organizations that's developing similar products on the market. Okay. And then if you are communicating this to your sponsor or whoever, communicate what is going to be delivered, not what is limited. Because communicating what is limited doesn't help the problem. And then successful Delivery sets a credibility precedence for the next client engagement is strategic repetition. Yeah. Successful delivery, meaning all stakeholder perceive value at met, I met, and satisfied. It sets its precedence for the next client engagements and add a strategic repetition assets to the organization. Lesson learned build institutional knowledge, OPAs stands for organization process assets, a competitive assets and force multiplier for future projects. Lesson learned from this project can be used for other future projects. Every constraint is a prioritization decision. Every threat is a value protection conversation. Every opportunity is a more outcome waiting to be clean. Ha ha. Every opportunity is a more outcome waiting to be clean. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. UAT with 250 real senior users generate high quality feedback. Quality investments reduces rework and measurably improve adoption. Adoption reduces rework, generate high quality feedback. Those are all outcomes waiting to be clean in the process of delivering stakeholder perceived value. So let's connect more. Let's connect more to the competencies that that deliver it. Basically, let's connect more to the PMI Talent Triangle and the skills that is needed to deliver each activities within its M.O.R.E framework, within its project using M.O.R.E framework. Each stakeholder perceived value maps directly to the to a primary PMI talent triangle skill domain. This is how human centered planning connects to the competencies required to execute it. Senior citizen is the end user, right? The perceived value is independence and navigation confidence. Primary PMI talent triangle skills needed ways of working is accessibility design standards. Okay, accessibility design standards and power skills is empathy and active listening. You have to be able to listen. Even if the 250 senior citizens that are selected to test this product, again, you have to still have empathy, patience, and you have to be able to listen to what they say, right? And then product owner, voice and feature lead. Voice enables self-learning experience is the perceived value. What's the power skills in that? Negotiation and collaborative leadership, right? The project manager needs to be able to negotiate with the product owner and be a collaborative leader with his team and other stakeholders in order to deliver the perceived value, regardless of the changes. Ways of working, agile scope management. Yep, it's product development, software development. It's obviously agile scope management. Project sponsor, organizations, credibility, and strategic momentum. Business acumen, strategic alignment, and benefit realization. Yep. Okay. Strategic alignment. Project managers need to be strategically aligned with the organization business objective. And that strategic alignment needs to be realized. The benefit needs to be realized. And the power skills, communication and strategic thinking. Communicate. Ask your sponsor, ask your higher ups, ask your senior manager, what does this project means? Like what value do you perceive from this project? And be able to have some strategic thinking so you align yourself with the project activities. So you align the project activities with the organization goals. Business development team, right? Growth and pipeline, market differentiation and pipeline growth. Again, benefit realization, competitive analysis, power skills, stakeholder engagement, and influencing. Yep, influencing. Release and security team. The perceived value, secure accessibility, authentication, ways of working, hybrid methodology, and governance. Governance. Okay. Business acumen, legal and regulatory compliant. Yes. Protecting data, that's legal and regulatory compliant. And then caregiver and family, peace of mind and reduce caregiving burden, power skills, empathy, emotional intelligence, and communication, ways of working, design, and accessibility standards. So now you see how you got the stakeholders, you got the perceived value, and then you have the skills represented within a talent triangle that can be applied to accomplish each one of these perceived value of these stakeholders. So regardless if the scope change, the budget change, the schedule change, risk increase, risk reduce, and stuff like that, new team get assigned. At the end of the day, what makes the project successful is when the perceived value is met. And the talent triangle is one of the framework that can show you the skills that you need to adapt in order to be able, the skills domain you need to adapt in order to be able to accomplish these perceived value. Great resources. Key insight: no single side of the talent triangle is enough. Technical delivery, stakeholder communication, and strategic awareness must work together for seniors life to deliver more. Last slide. The question that changes everything. The question is no longer simply, did we finish on time and on budget? The question is, did we deliver what truly matter? Okay. One, five key takeaway. One, project success is no longer defined by the talent triangle alone. Value delivery is the new standard of professional accountability. Sion's life shows us the delivery scope, the schedule, and the budget without stakeholder perceived value is not success. Stakeholder perceived value must be identified, mapped, and actively managed from the beginning, from the planning phase onward. The six stakeholders group on Sion project lives each defines success differently, and every planning decision is anchored to the map. Execution disruption are inevitable. Yep, it is. But more provides a value alignment lens for navigating them. Each of three Sion's life development was resolved through the more pilots, not despite them. Okay. Hey, changes will come. But what more does is that it provide a value aligned lens that keeps you, it provide a value aligned lens that no matter what always navigates you, will navigate you back to the stakeholders' perceived value. You have to be able to navigate yourself back to the stakeholder perceived value. Power skills, communication, empathy, negotiation, and strategic thinking are critical to value delivery as technical competence. The PM on Sion's life was a steward of value, not just a schedule keeper. Five, improving the chances of success require deliberate alignment of performance level with the project's context, stakeholder, and strategic objective. The triple constraint and talent triangle are tools in service of more, not the goal itself. That brings us to the end of today's presentation and today's study class session. Thank you very much for being part of this great study class session. I hope you was able to gather some things, and I hope that this concept that we are currently studying will make a significant impact in your project management career. Thank you once again for joining this study class section. The material will be posted in the group for members to review. Please, again, if you are a member of this group, please keep every content in this group. It takes time, effort, and energy to create these materials, and everyone and anyone who express interest in these materials, please ask them to come and join the group so they can get the full benefit. Please do not copy this material and share with external people who are not part of this group. Please invite them to come and be part of this group. I appreciate your time and thank you very much. Today's study class is over. Have a great day. Bye.